Hi everyone, this is Yana Smakula and thanks for joining me. In this video, I'm going to show you my creative card making process from coming up with an idea, picking out products, deciding on a color scheme, and actually creating my card. I am making a card for an upcoming Mother's Day for my mom. I already have a gift for her. I actually bought a bunch of little gifts before I left the United States, and I've been giving them to her one by one. So just something fun and special every time we get together for coffee. I already have a Mother's Day gift and I just need to make a card. I decided to play with the new goodies from Simon Says Stamp. These are from the Fluttering By release. There are many great products to play with. The minute I opened my package, I had tons of ideas in my head, but because my package came just a day ago, I haven't yet had the time to execute all of those ideas. I'm sharing one idea in this video, and I encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel and come back again as I'll be sharing more creative projects using these new products. I decided to play with a new stencil. This is Tap Dance Stencil. If you've been following me some time, you know that I love to use stencils for dry embossing. So I thought this one would add just the perfect amount of texture to my card today. Of course, you can use it to add color to your projects, but for the card I have in mind, I only wanted to dry emboss with this stencil. I've trimmed a piece of white cardstock to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches to be my card front and also to build my card design on as I pick the products and decide on the card layout for this project. Next, I'm using the Mom Flowers stamp set, and I very much like the big and bold word Mom. I also have coordinating dies for this, and as I am planning my card design, I am placing the stamp on the coordinating die and placing that onto my stencil to remember that I want to stamp this and cut it out. Believe it or not, but I often forget what I had in mind, so I either write things down on a piece of paper or I build little sketches like this using my products, and then I take a picture with my phone to remember what that idea was. This is especially helpful if I don't get to finish a card in one day because I often get interrupted. Next, I decided to add the flowers around the word Mom. So I used both the open and the sideways flower, and I placed them on the sketch, trying to figure out the best placement. I only have 2 stamps, but I will add 3 flowers to my card to make it more balanced. Next, to add color to the background, because at this point it would have been white on white, I picked the Make Your Mark stamp set. And I have to say that I love stamp sets like this. They are fantastic for creating your own backgrounds, your own patterns, adding sketch-like details to your cards, and they were very popular about 5 or 6 years ago. So I'm happy to see that Simon is bringing a stamp set like this back. I know I will be using it a lot because this is a very me stamp set. Next, I started looking for some additional messages for my card. As I didn't want it to just say Mom, I wanted to have a full message here. So I picked one that says Happy Mother's Day because, of course, this is a Mother's Day card. This stamp set has several other non-Mother's Day sentiments, so this is a nice set to use all year round and for Mother's Day as well. Now that I have the card design sketched out, it's time to pick the color scheme for this project. I often struggle with picking the right colors or picking colors that go well together. This is not something that comes naturally to me, so I spent a lot of time in search of that one perfect color combo. A long time ago, I printed these color cards off Pinterest, and I've shared them many times on my channel, but long time ago. Since my move back to Ukraine, I found them in my old craft room as I didn't take them with me to the US. So I've found them and I've been using them to make it easier for myself to pick the right colors. There are many ways online that can be helpful for picking proper colors for your projects. Simon Says Stamp, for example, has fantastic color coordinates series with Sherry Carroll, and they even have a download with all of Sherry's colors. And I plan to download and print it and use it in addition to these printed cards. I just haven't had the time to do it. I ended up going with a simple, soft spring color combo: yellow, pink, green, and beige. And I picked corresponding ink colors from Simon from my stash. I went with green apple, hollyhock, duckling. I didn't use the other colors that I had selected. So now that I have all of the parts and pieces for my card, it's time to start putting it together. I decided to use the long stripe stamp and stamp it vertically onto my white cardstock panel. Since this was a brand new stamp, I primed it with Versamark ink. I inked it up and I cleaned it with my hand. Jennifer McGuire recommends doing this when you have brand new solid stamps, and this really does give better results when you go to stamp with your clear stamps for the first time. I forgot to later prime the Mom stamp, and you'll be able to see the difference as it didn't stamp well the first time. I first wanted to stamp these stripes horizontally, but they are long, almost as long as the width of an A2 card. So that was a bit too long for my taste, and therefore I decided to stamp them vertically. I started with a green stripe in the middle, added 2 yellow stripes, and 2 pink stripes to add some color to my card. I did not go ahead and dry emboss this right away, as that would have been a logical step to do. I did not dry emboss as I knew that I would be stamping my sentiments onto the panel, and the dry embossing would prevent me from having a nice, crisp impression. I couldn't stamp the sentiments at this point as I was still missing a few pieces. Next, I die cut the word Mom out of white cardstock, and I used my mini MISTI tool. I still had stamps there from my previous project. I haven't finished that card, so I didn't put the stamps away, and that's the card that I was sharing on my Instagram stories a few days ago, so if you follow me, you might have seen it. That was a card with lots of pencil coloring. So I first stamped the word Mom using Hollyhock ink, but I didn't quite like how dark it was. I wanted to have a softer look to this image, so I decided to use my Avery Elle pigment inks and do an ombre look. I used Pixie color and Raspberry color and double stamped this for a beautiful ombre mom. You can also use Hero Arts ombre inks for this. I'm loving these pigment inks by Avery Elle lately, so this is why I use them here. Pigment inks do take a bit longer to dry, so it's best to set your stamped image aside and let it air dry or use your heat tool to speed up the drying time. Next, I needed to stamp the flowers, so I used my Simon's Intense Black ink and my mini MISTI again, and I stamped 4 flowers. I knew I'd be using just 3, but I often like to have 1 extra image to practice my coloring. I went with Copic markers and I picked my usual go-to color combo for pinks. It's RV13, 13, and 11. No rocket science to coloring these flowers, super simple coloring with a dark, medium, and light marker. These flowers would end up being partially covered by that large Mom die cut, so really there's no point in spending much time doing all of the blending and coloring. Besides, the image already has a lot of stamped detail to it, so you really don't need to do much in terms of coloring to make it look pretty. It already is pretty. I used coordinating dies and cut these out in my Spellbinders Platinum machine, which sits off to the side. Now that I have all of the parts and pieces, I can go ahead and arrange the elements on my background. I've added my Mom die cut, I'm adding my flowers, and I'm ready to stamp the sentiment. I was planning to have the sentiments centered, but since there's that 1 flower under the word Mom, I decided to move it slightly to the right. I'm taking this to my mini MISTI to stamp the sentiments, and I'm doing this because I already have my background created for the most part, and I really don't want to mess it up by accidentally not stamping these sentiments well enough. I'm using same black ink as before, just to have all of my blacks match, and I'm double and even triple stamping this to have a nice black outline. I thought about using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is my go-to ink for stamping sentiments, but I remembered that I would be dry embossing this background using a stencil, and that ink would have transferred onto the stencil just because of the nature of the ink. It takes longer to dry, so there was that risk of having the ink transfer. So that's why I went with the Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. I'm going to use some low-tack tape and we'll tape the flowers and the word Mom together so that I can move it out of the way as one piece. There's no sense taking this apart. I can just tape it together and make it easier to adhere it onto the card later. Time to add that dry embossing to my background. For this, I'm going to use my dry embossing sandwich and again my Spellbinders Platinum die cutting machine. For this machine, the sandwich is the following. You'll need your platform. I'm using a magnetic platform, but regular platform works all the same for this. Next, place your brown mat, place your paper, add your stencil so the mat will push the paper through the stencil, and close this with a blue plate. Send through the machine and emboss. I just send it once, and there's that beautiful result that you get. It's so effortless. It literally takes less than a minute. And you can do this in any die cutting machine as long as you have a mat for embossing. So just check the manual for your machine if you don't know how to dry emboss in your die cutting machine. I'm going to add foam adhesive to the back of my mom and floral die cuts, and I'm going to foam mount this onto my card. I'm sorry that my hair was getting in the way sometimes. I was filming this super early in the morning to make sure that I would have it ready on time for the block hop. And speaking of the block hop, this video and also a blog post over on my blog is a part of the Simon Says Stamp 2-day block hop celebrating the new Fluttering By release. There's lots of inspiration to see, some beautiful products to shop, and overall, it's just a great start to a crafty weekend. I plan to do a lot of card making over the weekend. I'm leaving on a 2-week work trip soon, and I want to make sure that I have some fun projects and videos to share with you while I'm away. So I'll be making these over the weekend. I also used a white gel pen and I fixed some of my messy Copic coloring. The ink went outside the lines in a few places and I wanted to correct that. Finally, I finished this card by adding several Butterfly Kisses sequins. These are also new from Simon. And later, once the glue was dry, I adhered this panel onto A2 side folding card base. So this finishes my video. I hope you feel inspired to create. Thanks so much for watching. If you have questions, as always, please leave them in the comment section below and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't yet done so. If you are a subscriber but are not receiving new video notifications, check the bell icon on the homepage of my channel to get notified every time there's a new video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!